The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Abovus webinar for digital transformation, focusing specifically on waste and environmental services. I hope everyone can hear me okay, and as importantly, can see the screencast, so you can see my slides I'm sharing. My name is Bernie Simmons. I'm going to be your main presenter for this morning. We should have you done within 60 minutes comfortably. We've got quite a bit of content to get through, and so on that note, we'll press on and get moving. We've got quite a few, just a couple of housekeeping points first off. We've got quite a number of people dialed in this morning and connected to the session. So we have got everyone who isn't a presenter or what's called a panelist in this context on mute. If you do have questions to ask, and I've got a colleague of mine, Rachel, who's helping in terms of making sure that this whole event runs smoothly. It will be Rachel that can help with questions. The way to ask your questions is to use the chat facility on the GoToWebinar program. So on your control panel, you have an ability to send a question to the panelists or to Rachel specifically, and Rachel will help you with any questions as they crop up. In terms of materials for this event, we'll be making a recording of the event available, so you'll be able to watch it on demand after your first viewing, or indeed to share that link with colleagues if you think other people would be interested in seeing this. And also we'll be sharing a copy of the slides, so they'll be available for download as well in PDF format, so that you can again review some of the more detailed content. So in terms of structure and agenda for this morning, having welcomed you all to our online event, we'll do a little bit of kind of recent background and overview of what we call the MyCounsel Services platform structure. And then I'm going to provide you with a demonstration of some of the key elements of functionality, and we'll talk around some of the things that offers and the opportunities that presents. And we'll then finish up with a short overview of some of the additional features that we haven't had time to show in detail this morning. And I've talked about question and answer. Please use the chat facility to raise questions that you might have. You'll also have contact details for myself and my colleagues at Abovus. So if you want to continue a conversation following this event, then you'd be very welcome to engage with us. We'd be happy to speak with you in more detail. So if we just think for a moment about some of the challenges, and these challenges apply to waste and environmental services, and they probably apply more broadly to UK local authorities. But there are a number of things we'd like to call out. When you think about waste management and environmental services delivery in the context of a UK local authority, they are resource intensive. And they're resource intensive in the context where actually resources in terms of frontline service delivery are being reduced because councils are having to make savings in the ongoing prevailing conditions of austerity. So you've got a resource intensive and actually quite a technical broad range of services to deliver when you think about the effective management and delivery of domestic and trade waste collection services, making sure that streets are clean and that environmental cleanliness and safety is up to scratch. These are all technical and resource intensive processes. These are things that I don't need to tell this audience. As professionals in that space, you will understand this as well as anybody. There is, because of that broad range and that complexity, there tends to be historically a lack of automation and a tendency to continue to do things in the same way because it's challenging to make significant changes. On the customer expectation side, you've got customers who expect and care very much about the fact that their bins are emptied and collected efficiently and on time, and should they believe they've got a missed bin or some issue with their collection, they want to let you know about it quickly. In terms of contemporary service delivery, customers can choose the channel through which they want to get in contact with you. That might be an email, it might be a telephone call, they may even drop in face-to-face still, or they may use social media. So you've got multiple channels and you've got to try and bring those things together to make sure that you're capturing the detail that you need to manage customer expectations and also to deal effectively with genuine requirements from a customer perspective. Because of the resource intensiveness, it can lead to a little bit of inertia in terms of waste and environmental services, and sometimes you combine the complexity and broad range of services with budgetary constraint. That can actually create a situation where it undermines the ability of a service area to innovate and deliver. And then alongside that, you're going to need to know what's going on with those services. There's lots of different examples of the way refuse and waste management can be managed and delivered. You might have it as an in-house service, you might work with a third-party outsourced partner, but either way, you need good analysis and analytics, the ability to understand what's going on. So there are numerous challenges, some driven from budgetary and financial constraint, some just out of the technical and resource-intensive nature of the services that you're responsible for. From a MyCounsel Services point of view, Avivus offers a digital transformation platform called MyCounsel Services. We work with over 50 UK local authorities currently, and a good number of those are using us in their waste and environmental services space. We operate across the panoply of UK local authority service delivery, so that's right from fly tipping through to revenues and benefits. So we've got customers that use us across all of those or some of those, and we offer a modular platform that enables a number of different areas, and we'll focus on a range of those this morning in the next 50 minutes or so. And I'll just talk you through that now. But if you think about the contemporary UK local government structure, you've probably got some form of customer service function that sits across all of the service areas. That's certainly been an evolutionary step, as opposed to having individual customer services functions within service areas. You've probably got a pan-organisational customer services function that is managing customer interaction across multiple channels, however many channels that you offer. And it is probably a reality now that all authorities have to be multi-channel. Probably still need to offer some form of face-to-face for some customers or all customers. You certainly could probably continue to maintain some sort of telephone presence and call centre type process, and then increasingly digital channels, web, email, social media, whatever else it might be. And we offer a set of components that speak specifically to that requirement across all of those channels. So now a multi-channel customer contact, inbound contact, self-service offering. Sitting alongside that and behind that are specific modules and the capacity for integration into other third-party systems to enable the deep process automation. And in this session this morning, we're certainly going to concentrate on the waste element of that and the environmental services and aspects of those service deliveries. Because of the nature of those environmental services and waste collection services, they are typically place-based services. So you've got items that need to be collected and emptied somewhere in a location in your borough, in your district, in your unitary area. So most of these environmental and waste type applications and processes tend to have an occurrence somewhere on the surface of the planet. And that means you've got to have vehicles and people out and about that are dealing with those. So there's a very significant mobile worker element that speaks to some of the delivery components that we can provide here. And then if you think about how do you automate and build innovation into your system, well, a significant element of that is going to be technology enabled, and we offer a technology platform. That's what MyCounsel Services is all about. It's a digital software-based software as a service platform. It's also easy to forget in the white heat of delivering complex and technically and resource-intensive services that you have got customers at the element at the centre of this, and there is a requirement to make sure that you're addressing those customers' needs and expectations. So let's not forget that we've got customers who may have a missed bin, or who may have contaminated a bin knowingly or inadvertently, or some other issue. They want to sign up for a green garden waste program with you, or whatever it might be. There's a whole bunch of different services with customers very much at the centre, and it's important that we don't forget that in terms of designing our processes, that we need to meet those customer expectations. So that, I suppose, introduces the typical local authority contemporary structure as you evolve into a modern, digitally enabled organisation. And I hope it starts to introduce some of how the technology that we offer in the shape of MyCounsel Services maps to that set of requirements. I'm just going to explode out some of those and go into a little more detail in a few areas, but I'll do this fairly quickly, and then we'll step into a demo situation. So at the top of that stack, we talked about customer self-service and the ability to manage processes for and with customers. We can offer that in a range of different ways. So if we take that example of a customer reporting a fly tip, wanting to sign up for a paid for revenue neutral waste collection services such as green garden waste, you can enable that as a self-service capability via an e-form, or indeed via an account that they sign into, and can get access to a whole range of different transactional capabilities and apply for it and report it and pay for it type services. Some of those may involve payment and sharing of financial information, so you might want multiple tiers of verification for customers as they sign up for different services. We can offer all those sorts of things. So our self-service capability is both broad. You can offer it across multiple channels. That's any type of device, any type of browser, and it's deep. You can integrate it very tightly into the ongoing process. There's also another consideration here that will be in the minds of most local authority professionals, and it will be very much in the front of mind of anyone who works in a local authority with the responsibility for data protection, and that is GDPR legislation. There's a whole bunch of considerations there, and we are very much across that and have developed capabilities into our platform to enable you to manage that as a process and as a mandated requirement to protect your customers' data and their privacy. I'll mention that briefly as we move through this morning. The main event, really, I suppose, this morning is to demonstrate the end-to-end process. But also we want to expand and shed light on and describe in more detail how we help in two particular areas. One of those is waste management capabilities, how you configure and set up and run digital waste processes in your organisation. And also, how do you think about other concepts that sit within that? If customers are signing up to paid for services that you're offering, and I'll use Green Garden Waste as an example this morning, what they're effectively doing is signing into a contract with you. They're signing up for a paid-for service to be delivered at a certain frequency over a certain period of time, and they may want to renew that on an annual basis. What they're effectively doing is stepping into a contract with you at that point, and we provide tools to enable you to manage it as a contract or rolling legal agreement between you and your customer. And there are lots of examples of things that reflect the license and contract nature in local authorities, not just in waste and environmental services. So Green Garden Waste is one example. But you might think about taxi licensing, you might think about licensing for skips and scaffolds and all these sorts of things that local authorities have to deliver, and they have a complexity in them because they're an ongoing agreement between you and your customer, which has both financial implications and legally binding implications. And we offer a range of those sorts of line of business modules that can be applied to multiple different types of digital process. More about that as we move through. And then the final piece on the end-to-end process is the mobile working piece. So, if a customer does report a fly tip, for example, or they report a missed bin, you probably want to get that out to a mobile worker in a format that is quick and easy and efficient for them to deal with. That might be the assignment of a fly tip task or service request to an individual mobile worker who's working out in the borough, or it might be the proactive download into a dashboard-mounted device in a waste lorry, in a waste wagon, that downloads the day's collection so they can tick them off digitally. You might also want a paper backup printed up of that as well to be held in the cab just in case of digital failure. And then all of those things can be managed through the mobile working capability that we call Waste Worker. So that's a brief overview of some of the kind of capabilities that we offer, which we're going to, I suppose, brings me to just to talk about our approach to waste management and specifically digital transformation for waste management. Wherever possible, we offer and enable our clients being UK local authorities, the ability to provide a self-service experience for your customers, so the residents of your district, borough, unitary area. The ability to automate those processes through conditional logic and rules that mean you can automate whole chunks of a process or in our entire end-to-end process, but with the ability to hook out any exceptions should you need to. And then our end of the bargain, I suppose, is very much about making sure that we can deliver that in a cost-effective way for our customers, and also specifically when you're thinking about waste services, that the solution has to be scalable. Even the smallest district authority in the UK will have thousands of customers, most typically measured in the high tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of customers. So we provide technology-based solutions for waste environmental transformation that are digitally scalable. You can run them at scale and at speed. We currently have significantly more than 1 million users. So it's 1 million of your customers, residents of local authorities, who successfully use a branded version of the MyCounsel Services platform to enable digital self-service, automation, and digital transformation. We can provide an end-to-end digital process for all waste streams, so I'll speak briefly about those now. Scheduled waste services, so that would typically be things like domestic collections. We'll touch on some of those examples today. You'll have variations therein that are delivered to sections of your population, people that have collections for sharps and clinical waste and all those sorts of things. So either from a customer, a regular resident, or it might be from a medical facility. You can configure all of these end-to-end processes on our platform, and I'll show you how in the next 20 or 30 minutes. Green Garden Waste, I'm going to be showing you an end-to-end example of that this morning. And by the same token, you can configure any other paid-for waste service, so any configuration of trade waste that you might offer, both to manage the payment of that the management of delivery of service in light of payment or potentially non-payment if that's an issue in your area. And you can map and create those process flows on the platform and then deploy them for use. And then you might also think about ad hoc waste services, so payment for things like bulky item collection. And I'll show you a brief example of that this morning as well. So you can configure any of these processes on the platform and deploy them in any way that you want. So where that takes us to is really to kind of step over into a demonstration environment. And what I'm going to try and do in the next 20 or 30 minutes or so is take you through kind of a couple of end-to-end examples where we'll take on the role of a customer initially using a self-service My Account portal type capability that we would typically deploy for a council, and then we'll kind of manage that through the back office all the way to an example of service delivery using mobile worker, for example. So on that note, I'm going to jump out of the presentation mode in terms of out of the slides and get rid of my scribbles off the screen, and we'll jump across to a browser interface. So I'm running in Google Chrome in this example. You could run this in any environment that you wanted, any browser environment that you wanted. We also offer native mobile application alternatives for these, so that customers can run them through a browser on any device, or they can use a native mobile application on a tablet or smartphone device. We offer the native mobile application version comes in all flavors of operating systems, so that's Windows, Android, and iOS. So we offer a multi-channel experience in that regard. In this particular context, I've already gone ahead and I've logged in. So I'm logged in as an authenticated customer. And the first thing I should do is give you a little tour of the screen real estate. So on the left-hand side of the screen, we have a completely configurable list. So it's configurable by you, the council, and also to some extent configurable by the customer, but I'll talk more about that in a moment. That gives you the ability to navigate through all of the transactional feature, function, information retrieval feature and function that you're offering through your portal. And we'll go through and we'll use a few of these in a moment. So you've got a left-hand sidebar that's fully configurable. In the center of the screen, you've got a series of what we call widgets. So these are hotspots or widgets, whichever you prefer. And they again are configurable by the council, as in you can decide which information you want to display and how you might go about configuring that. And the customer, by turn, can also turn on or turn off widgets that they do or don't want to see. So in this example, in the center and the top row, we're displaying this particular customer, and I'm logged in as a pretend customer. More about this individual's profile in a moment. And this widget is pulling through to a third-party data source, some sort of web service call out to a separate database that's retrieving this authenticated customer's current council tax balance, which you could click on and go through and pay. It's also showing the number of planning applications, so that would be, in theory, retrieving data from perhaps a planning application that may be running in the council, number of schools in the catchment area based on the location of this registered customer. So there's a whole bunch of things that you can configure and deploy that are sometimes within waste environmental services, but they'll be more broad in their considerations in terms of the service area that they relate to. So we've got widgets in the center of the screen, a navigable menu on the left-hand side. Above the panel of widgets, we've also got an interactive knowledge base. So if this particular customer is interested in rubbish collection, and they type in the word rubbish into that context-sensitive search box, then they will get presented to them articles that reflect the nature of the search term that they've entered in. So in this case, Gary, my pretend customer, has typed in the word rubbish, and that's presenting associated articles, the first of which is, well, what bins should I have? And that will click through to a configured knowledge base article. So as part of the broader platform, we offer the ability to deploy a searchable interactive knowledge base that can face both to the customer and also can face internally to the members of the staff that might be assisting customers. And that can link through to articles, existing web content, whichever way you want that to run. So you've got a left-hand navigable sidebar, you've got configurable widgets, an interactive intelligence, searchable knowledge base, and then to the right-hand upper side of the screen, we've got specific details around the customer. So this particular customer can see how many service requests they've submitted, any drafts they've created, any contracts they may have signed up to, any appointments or bookings they've got with the council. So an ability to interrogate all of the aspects of their relationship with the council. I said I'd speak a little bit more about this particular customer, so I'll just draw your attention up to the top right-hand corner of the screen where you can see this thumbnail. This is a registered My Account portal, this particular customer, pretend customer I should add, is logged in and registered as a known customer. His name is Mr. Gary Wilcox. We've got his various historical addresses in the borough, all of his contact details, people that are connected to him. So a whole range of preference and account management information. I mentioned a few moments ago GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations. So this is the updated and upgraded and much more robust data protection legislation that's going to come on stream as of May 2018, and all organisations that hold personal data on customers need to be ready to demonstrate that they're managing data safely, and also to allow the customer the ability to be forgotten is one of the kind of underpinning tenets of it. And it's in this environment, in our My Account portal, that we offer those sorts of capabilities. So, for example, Gary, as a registered customer, if he wanted to remove certain elements of his relationship, the data that you hold on him, he could choose to do that. There's a process called erasure, which is the ability to remove individual threads of data, or at least if not remove them, anonymise them, so they're no longer associated with this particular customer. So erasure is one, and then deregistration is the more dramatic of the two. So that's removing all data that relates to identifying Gary, not necessarily the data of a service request or a collection, but removing his name from those details. So you've got the ability to enable the customer to self-serve in a way that is GDPR compliant as of May 2018, which is an important consideration. There is one footnote to all of that. The ability to allow customers to be forgotten can also be overruled by the lawful right for an organisation, local authority in this context, to retain that data. So there is also an ability within our platform for you to create a data retention policy, which has a specific effect on what can and cannot be removed, deleted, anonymised on behalf of a customer. So you've got two things that kind of interplay there, both the ability of the customer and their right to be forgotten, and the ability of the organisation, the local authority in this context, to lawfully retain and be able to demonstrate why that's lawful retention of specific data. For example, if the customer owes you money, they've got outstanding council tax bills, or they haven't paid for their trade waste, or whatever it might be, you're not going to allow them to remove those pieces of data. So that's a kind of broader introduction to one of the digital points of contact that you might offer, and through which you would deploy waste and environmental type services. So let's go and do a couple of things first off. Let's first off do a very simple report it example. But again, we'll use a kind of high volume, low complexity, very much usual suspect within the environmental services realm. So I'm going to search for a form, having clicked on the report it forms, that's got to do with fly tipping. So I type in the word fly and present it with two things: fly posting, fly tipping. I'm going to choose fly tipping. And what I'm going to do then is click on that, and that will take me into an electronic process. So the first question that we're asked at the browser at this e-form is it blocking a road or pathway? We'll say yes, that it is. So then it kicks in a bit of conditional logic that says, well, if it's blocking a road or pathway, that's potentially causing a health and safety issue. Is it? And I'm going to say yes, I have to step into the road to pass by. Is it on public or private property? We're asking the customer to divine, in this particular example, and decide for themselves whether it's on public or private property. There are actually automated ways of doing that. So we'll say it's on public. So you could, for example, capture the location, use the embedded location capability in an image if they're uploading an image to automatically define whether it's on public or private property. So you could remove that responsibility from the customer. If we see a committed to fly tip, we'll say no, we didn't. Please describe what's been dumped. We'll say that it's general rubbish and furniture. If I could spell. There we go. Click on next. You'll notice as I move through, I get navigated through a breadcrumb trail at the top of the screen, so I know whether I'm on step 3 of a 5-step process or step 3 of a 30-step process. The customer is kept up to date. Our general principle here is to reflect the interface, typefaces, the general kind of user experience of that which is being suggested and promoted and evangelised by the government digital services, by GDS. Generally, I think they're a good standard to adhere to, and that's what we're doing. This is a fly tip, so there's some physical material that's been dumped somewhere in the borough or in the district or in the council area. So we might want to allow the customer to take a picture of that. So we'll go and do that, and we'll upload a picture. You can control the number of pictures that you allow a customer to upload, what size they are, so on and so forth. So you've got full IT governance and control over all of this. We need to get the location of this because this is an incident that's happened somewhere it will automatically pick up from my internet protocol address where I'm connecting to the internet. So it will know my current location, but I can override that. I could search on a parcel address, a street name, any subsection of an address. Just in the interest of precision this morning, I'm going to actually give it a postcode, and I'm going to give it a postcode in northeast London because that will allow me to force it into a particular test environment that will allow us to manage this process downstream. So I can give you an end-to-end feeling of how some of these processes work. So I've typed in a Redbridge postcode, and I'm going to select an address. You'll notice it's matching actually against address space at this point. So our platform ships with and is regularly updated in line with the updates available from ONS with the full address-based database, so NLPG, National Land and Property Gazetteer. So the data that spins off the back of that, things like from an address search, a UPRN, unique property reference number, that can be matched to your subset of NLPG, which is, of course, is LLPG. So we can match directly into your local land and property gazetteer to make sure that you've got the correct UPRNs for things like waste collection and so on. So we'll take an address that will refocus the map for us based on that address. We can zoom in, we can move the map, move that pin around if we wanted to. So just to finish this process, we just give it an incident date. So we'll give it a date of today. We're asking the customer to give us a priority. You don't have to ask these questions in this order. You can ask a completely different set of questions or reorder them or design that process in any way that you want. The entire platform includes a comprehensive and sophisticated e-forms design application. And then we'll click on next, and it will just give Gary, as our registered pretend customer or Guinea pig customer, the opportunity to review all of the data that he has been creating. And then he can go ahead and you could either save and submit that later, so you could have saved that at any point in the process so far, or you can go ahead and you can submit. So that's a first example of a digital transaction in the environmental and waste services arena using a fly tip, a simple example. We'll go on to manage that downstream in a little bit. But there's a couple of other things I'd like to do at this point just to demonstrate some of the other kind of capabilities and slightly more, arguably slightly more complex processes. So the next thing I'm going to do is go to the apply for it form. So I'm going to use the navigation options in the left-hand sidebar, and I'm going to click on apply for it. And this time I've got less forms in terms of application, but you can see the range of any kind of different application forms that we've got set up here as example, from blue bars, badge application through to single person council tax discount. We've also got a green garden waste. You don't have to organise them as a report to apply for it. You could do it by service area. You could do it in any way that you like. It's completely configurable. But we're going to go through a green garden waste registration process. This actually comes from one of our clients. So we've done some work with Monmouthshire County Borough Council in South Wales, and they've got had a very successful rollout of their green garden waste program using our technology. So you'll notice some references to Monmouthshire in this example. That's because we've just lifted and shifted some of the configuration that they did just to use for demonstration purposes. So you've got some background around the green garden waste process. You've got the familiar breadcrumb trail across the top, details around address search guidance and so on. The first actual question that we asked as part of this digital process is, are you a new or returning customer? For the purposes of this example, I'm going to say I'm a new customer. And then the next piece that we ask is for the customer to tell us how many, in Monmouth's case, how many permits or containers that they would like. Monmouth actually issue a paid printed permit that is securely kept in a waterproof poly pocket that is attached to what in Monmouth's case a large robust waste sacks. So the first question we ask is, how many containers would you like? How many permits would you like? So we drop into that, and actually what this takes us into is the MyCounsel Services integrated contracts and licensing module, and you'll get a clue to why that's the case in a moment. At the top, we ask the customer to select the contract type. So this is green garden waste that we're being asked to do. The next piece is more of a kind of a product inventory management piece, that tells the customer how much it costs to have a container for 1 year, and we then give the customer the opportunity to upgrade the number of containers or increase or decrease the number of containers. Gary's going to ask for 2. And then we have to capture some spatial data, some geographically referenced data that allows us to create a point of collection on a green garden waste round collection. So we're asking Gary, in this case, for his full address or postcode. So I'm going to put in E18 2HZ, which is Gary, my fictional customer's fictional postcode. It's a real postcode, but he doesn't really live there. And that then matches against the address-based database. So we'll pick Gary's address, which is 78 Grove Hill. And because this is configured as a contract, we've actually set this up as a green garden waste templated contract. We can display to Gary all the specific terms and grace policy and policy of novating or moving a contract from one property to another or one person to another, and what the policy on termination is. All of this is defined at the contract level using the MyCounsel Services contracts module, which first of all builds efficiency into the process because you only have to update those contract terms once and every customer can be updated. But it also manages things like renewal and automated renewal of such a thing as an annual contract for green garden waste, for example. You'll notice while I've been explaining some of those things that the contracts module has recalculated the cost. So Gary's asked for 2 containers at £20 per year, so that's a total cost of £40. So assuming that we're happy with that, we then click on select, and that then takes us on to the next stage. So this is to confirm Gary's contact details. Now, because Gary's a registered customer, we have got, for example, his fictional email address and his fictional mobile phone number, but there seems to be a record missing here for his telephone number. So we'll put in a telephone number and allow Gary to update that, and then click onto the next stage, which is getting into payment. So having collected the details and knowing Gary's details as a registered customer, we then need to reconfirm his address details. So he's at 78 Grove Hill. So we know that because he's a registered customer, so we don't have to get Gary to put that in again, although he can overwrite it if he wishes. And then he needs to go and make a payment. So here's our first point of system-to-system integration from a waste and environmental services point of view. So if I click on next, that will take us into a payment environment. We're actually using a Barclaycard test payment gateway interface. So you can integrate into any, and we have integrated into many different types. So Capita, ePayment Suite, the Civica ePayment Suite, Adelante, Iridium, WorldPay, you name them, we've integrated into pretty much all of them, I think. And we'll just show you a quick example here. So if I click on Barclaycard, which is the test version we're using here, what that will allow to happen is a secure handshake between the MyCounsel Services platform and your chosen selected council payment gateway provider. So MyCounsel Services at no point is acting as the payment collection engine. We are integrated securely into your payment card industry compliant payment gateway stroke merchant services account. So it's picked up the order number and the value and the beneficiary of the details. So it's done a secure handshake and data exchange, encrypting data while it's both at rest and in transit. We then click on what's probably now a very familiar process of online payment for most of us. We just need to put in the payment details. So I put in Gary's details, I put in a fictional card number, a test card number that we can use. I put in an expiration date, and I put in my CVC code. Click on confirm my payment. We then let the payment gateway do its thing, and that will then hand a confirmation back to MyCounsel Services. So there's another secure handshake going on in the reverse direction this time, from payment gateway provider back to the MyCounsel Services platform, that says to Gary, thanks for that, Gary, your payment has been accepted at £40. And then we click on next, and Gary gets a confirmation of those details. So he gets full summary of exactly what it is he's ordered. He will also be emailed a VAT invoice, a tax invoice, and then he can go ahead and he can submit that. So what we've done so far, we've done a couple of things. We've done an environmental services transaction around reporting a fly tip as a registered customer. Now Gary's gone on to do an end-to-end, or kick off an end-to-end process around signing up for a financial annual contract for the paid contract for the collection of his green garden waste, and has ordered a number of containers through which to do that and applied for permits. We'll just do one last thing, one other kind of configured trade waste process, sorry. So I'm just going to jump back to report it forms, and I'm going to look for a bulky item uplift form. So, and again, this is another bookings and paid for service. So we'll move through this pretty quickly, but there's just a couple of areas I'd like to show you. So the first thing we've got configured in this sample, and this is just a sample, is I can either configure that for me at my home address. Again, that's Gary doing that, or I could, if I wanted to, organise that on behalf of someone else and use the LLPG capability to search for that address and confirm it, but I'm paying for it. So if I was doing that on behalf of an elderly relative and he or she wanted some assistance in terms of collection of items, I could organise it on someone else's behalf and pay for it. But I'm going to do it at my home address. I then need to select the slot. So this is a very much a kind of waste and environmental services process, but it's an ad hoc waste collection services that in this context needs to be paid for. So we'll select the slots, and it automatically defaults to the day. I can choose from, you can configure different facilities for ad hoc collection. So I'll choose the domestic collection service, and we'll just choose a date for today. So we'll take the 11 o'clock slot for the day. You can control when these things become available. That then expands out into the number of items that I want collected. So if I want to have fridge or other white goods collected, it will start to calculate the cost for those. If I want someone to come into the house to collect that, I can click that and it will continually add up the inventory that I'm selecting. So we'll assume that we're happy at that level. It's calculated at a £12 cost. Click on select and it will write those details back into the process. So that's using our bookings and appointments module in this example. So you can start to see how different types of processes have different implications in terms of the way that you want to manage them. And that's how we've developed the MyCounsel Services platform, to have these line of business systems that allow you to develop parallel processes that have different characteristics to them so you can manage them efficiently. We'll click on next at that point, because there's a few things we might want to allow the customer to do. So it's a collection of some bulky items that he wants collected. We might need to take a look at that, so we give them the opportunity to upload a picture at this point. So we'll say the picture of some white goods. Again, click on next. We've got another payment process, so this is using the same payment gateway. So that integration into Barclaycard is being used multiple times, and that's very much a feature of how we work. If we're doing integration into a system, particularly payment, we leave that behind on the platform as a plugin so that you can use it multiple times for multiple processes. So this will be familiar to you now because we just did it a few minutes ago, so I'll whistle through this very, very quickly without as much narrative as I provided last time. And we confirm that payment, and again, let the reverse confirmation go back to our platform for the requisite payment for bulky item collection. Payment's been accepted. Click on next for Gary, and then you can go and submit that contract. So Gary has done 3 things this morning in fairly short order. In the space of about 10 or 15 minutes, he's reported a fly tip. He's signed up for a Green Garden waste collection and paid for that service and created a contract between him and the council, and had the opportunity to review all the terms and conditions around that. And latterly, he's just requested a paid for ad hoc waste collection. So all of those are things that are collected and configured on our platform. So where we go next, and where we're going to try to tie some of these loose ends together, these disparate processes that Gary has created, albeit they're disparate processes that have different resource implications for the council, but he's had a very consistent experience this morning using forms all within a single portal, so a nice, easy to navigate process for the customer. Where we'll go next is to go into what we call the MyCounsel Services back office, to start to manage some of these things downstream. And I'll just start to kind of pick out a few areas of functionality that are relevant from a waste and environmental services delivery perspective. So what we're doing now is we're stepping out of the role of customer and into the role of a back office council officer, someone that's managing that process and is going to be implicated potentially in the delivery of that process. So I'm going to sign in under a different set of details at this point. And see if I can remember my password. And I'm going to log in. So the first thing you'll notice is a couple of things. We've just dropped into an environment that we call Service Desk. So Service Desk is very much kind of service-oriented view of the world. So we're seeing a whole bunch of place-based issues here. Based on our privilege as a council officer, we'll see either more or less detail and data that's relevant to our roles and responsibilities. So if I'm working in waste and environmental services, I will see the environmental services relevant processes, service requests that are coming through, but I wouldn't see things that are related to social care or revenues and benefits, for example. So that can all be locked down in the back office. If I've got the privilege to see things, then I can change my view of that. So I can see that the book and pay for a bulky item collection today at 10:38 that was created by Gary, and that's sitting there. I can see the fly tip that was created by Gary earlier at 10:27. And you'll see a couple of things happen here, actually. I'll just draw your attention to those while they're on screen. So with the fly tip in particular, that's been assigned out to an owner. So something has happened to that. Gary created it as the customer, so he's highlighted here as the customer, but it's now got an internal owner. So that's an example of an automated rule kicking in the background that says, well, if it's a fly tip and it's in this location, then it's assign it out to the person that's best placed to deal with it, for example. And in this example, it's assigned it out to me in one of my other roles as a council officer, which we'll come on to in a minute when we look at mobile working from an environmental services and waste perspective. Bulky item collection, we can see that. We can drop into the detail of that. But if I want to change my view of that, and I want to go and look maybe at green garden waste details, I can click on the filter button, and if I've got the permissions and the privileges to do so, everything in MyCounsel Services is locked down from a role-based access control perspective, then I can go and search for those, and that should return to me, the most recent green garden waste contract that Gary created. So you can see, if I click into that, I can actually see the contract concept sitting around that particular transaction that Gary created this morning. I'll just drop into that for a second so you can take a look at that. So that gives you actually in this context all of the contract-based details around Gary's request for a green garden waste piece. We can go and manage that in another interface, which I'll try and get to show you in a bit if we have time. But the green garden waste example is interesting because there's a couple of things going on there. There's the contract element to it, which is the commercial side of the relationship that Gary's chosen to create through the self-service module this morning, that annual renewable option around having your green garden waste collected by the council. But there's also a waste collection component going on with that, which is that it's got to step into and integrate into a broader and more technical and resource-intensive set of processes around waste collection. So that's where I want to take us next. So we're moving through quite a bit of content quite quickly and at quite a high level, but I do want to try and sort of map out the process for you if I can. So we're looking at that in a service desk context, so we can see all of the different green garden waste contracts that have gone through. And again, if I change my filter view and just go back to report it, then I can see a different slice of service request data, which we'll also come back to in a moment. But I just want to go down this line of the waste collections piece first and what's going on with that. So the next place that I'd like to take you is into the contracts interface, because it's from here that I can review and see all of the contracts that have been created. So I'm out of service desk and I'm into a more detailed contracts interface here. So this is much more the kind of interface and tool set that maybe a specialist administrator within environmental services that's dealing with green garden waste as a process, probably as part of a broader range of responsibilities. But you've got a business interface and a management interface to go and report against and view all of those green garden waste contracts that are being created. You can either create one as a self-service process or as a mediated process with a customer, or I can drop in and see the specific contract detail from individual customers here as well. So this is Gary's most recent one on the 22nd of November. You can see the start and the end date. And if I drop into that, then I've got the ability to go and manage the details of that specific contract with Gary. So if I was on the phone to Gary and I was dealing with that, I could review the grace policy, the novation policy. I could terminate it if the conditions were met. There are all sorts of different things that I could do. I could update it, I could change it, I could add to it. So as well as deploying it as a self-service capability, the contracts module and the fact that we've got it configured as a contract allows you to manage it through the back office as such. So this is quite an interesting example of this green garden waste piece because it points in lots of different directions. It points to the commercial aspect, which is contracts management with a customer. In this case, we've been looking at Gary with his green garden waste contract with the council, but it could be that you've also got a whole bunch of paid for trade waste processes that you offer. So the contracts module allows you to manage those and govern those and monitor those and report on those in a very efficient way. The other thing that, of course, waste collection services are doing are creating data around the collection of the material that needs to be removed from either the domestic or the commercial premises. And we offer the waste module and an interface into that allows you to manage that aspect of it. So I want to go and find the data that Gary created around that particular green garden waste collection. I can choose filter, select the process type. Now if I just search on Gary's postcode, E182HZ, and click on search, then that should return all of the latest collections in relation to their green garden waste collection. So we can see that there's one created here on the 22nd of November. We've used this to address multiple times for conversations like this, but it's actually created a set of waste data. So from that single point of self-service interaction, from Gary's perspective, the customer at the portal has gone off and created a commercial package of data around the contract, but it's also pushed off into the MyCounsel Services waste module to actually create collections data and add Gary's collection at 78 Grove Hill from the 22nd of November 2017 to the 21st of November 2018 as a collection point, a valid collection point for green garden waste. And I've got all of the details, including collection dates, the round that it's been added to. So what it's gone and done automatically is add that piece of data as a verified and paid for service into collection round F01, which is a recycling type round collected on a Monday. And we can see all of the details around Gary's history relating to that particular contract. So from that single point of self-service activity where Gary signed up for that waste service, the green garden waste service, has pushed off and created a commercial package of contract data, and it's also interfaced into our waste module to create a collection point on the round. So you're automating all of those steps and removing the need for human intervention and simplifying the renewals process. So that's the kind of business level management of those contracts and waste processes. The other area I want to take you into is just into the administration piece, because I've showed you kind of in a Blue Peter style, the finished product, if you will, where we've got an e-form and a contracts module, and that's interfacing into our pre-configured waste collection data. I just want to show you very, very briefly where you go to configure that, because one of the things that marks MyCounsel Services apart from other potential approaches to solving these problems with technology is the fact that we allow a significant degree of self-configuration here. So you can certainly go and build things like individual forms, but if I scroll down on the administration module, you'll also see there's a separate waste component here where we configure different collection types. If I click on collection, you can see we've got different collection processes and routines and rounds set up. We've got domestic collections, recycling, sharps, business waste, green garden waste, and so on. So I can go and create a new one of those if I wish. Just click on the plus sign in the top right-hand corner. I can configure all of the details around container types that are available, the collection type, the frequency of that collection, when it starts, when it finishes, and so on. And because I can configure it, I can go in and change it and monitor and update it at any point. So we can see under green garden waste, we've got details around the container types that are available and so on and so forth. So you can really configure this from the ground up. So if you take it in the opposite direction to that which I've showed you, you can configure the round collection. You've then got a whole bunch of tools that allow you to monitor and govern and manage those processes from a back office perspective. And you've then got a whole bunch of tools that allow you to deploy a self-service interface for customers to use in terms of signing up for and engaging with the council to either purchase or secure those services, and whatever the approach might be. I've showed you that in the workflow piece where we showed the customer doing that first, and then we looked at the business interface of it, the monitoring through the contracts and the waste module, and then we stepped back into the detailed technical configuration of those processes. The message being that it's entirely configurable end-to-end from your point of view. So if you're making changes to your services, you've got the tools at your disposal to do that. You're not on the hook back to us every time you want to make a change request, or you have a policy change around where you source your containers from, and therefore the size of them, so on and so forth. So the message is you can configure those from the ground up, and then having done so, deploy those for customers to use on a self-service basis. There's just a couple of other final things I want to show in terms of the live demo before we just step back into some slides to kind of tidy things up and finish off and make sure we can let you get on with the rest of your Wednesday within 60 minutes, as I promised earlier. So I've just taken us back to Service Desk, and in here we've got, I alluded to it earlier, I called it out earlier, and on the flight tip example, we had an automatic rule kick in that assigned it out to a particular worker, me in this case. In the last few minutes I've been speaking and explaining some of the other aspects of the platform. The same kind of rule, automated rule, has kicked in for the bulky item payment for collection service as well. So that's also been automated and assigned to me. A couple of other things have happened. We've also automatically added what we call a service level to each of these processes. So what we've said is, well, our general service level is to respond to the customer within 30 minutes. And so that's been appended as a set of data around those two individual service requests. what that allows you to have is a whole set of extra, what you would describe as metadata, that allows you to manage the downstream process of how you're going to work with that service request internally. So if that initial service request isn't automatically met, we haven't emailed the customer back within the first 30 minutes, then you might say, well, it's gone out of tolerance. We'll use that service level data to escalate it or to re-email the customer and explain why we're out of tolerance or we haven't met our service delivery deadlines. You don't have to wrap service level agreements around every process type, but they're there as an additional option if you want to. The other thing that I'll call out, we're going to take a look at this on a mobile device interface in a moment, is just as if I click back into that fly tip example and we go into the detail of that from service desk, and I just spin down, you can see all of the detail around that particular service request and manage that from the back office. You can see that it's been assigned out to me as an owner. Also, an individual task has been created and assigned out to another colleague. And then at the bottom of this, we've got an end-to-end, constantly updated in real time history of everything, or audit trail of everything that's gone on and happened to that particular service request. So it was submitted by the customer, their time and date stamp on there, the initial status, an email sent back to the customer, the general service level policy was applied, another update was sent, automated email was sent back to the customer to manage their expectations and tell them what's happening next. The fact that it was also assigned out to me as a mobile worker, the owner was changed at that point. So all of these things are captured. So if you ever need to forensically examine the audit trail of what's happened to a particular service request, either because it's a fly tip and you've identified who did it and you're going to go and prosecute them, or for some other internal audit or productivity reason, all of that data and historical data is available. The other thing I wanted to do at this stage, very, very briefly, is just touch on the mobile working piece. And what I'd like to do, if I can, is share with you my iPhone screen. So bear with me a second, because I have to use a little bit of third-party technology to do this. Hopefully that will work this morning. I was testing it earlier and it worked fine. There we go, looks like it's working. So I've just brought up on screen my iPhone screen. So if I bring down that control screen, I'm going to drop into a directory called a counsel app. So I mentioned at the top of our broadcast this morning that we, as well as offering a full responsive browser-based interface for customers and back office, we also offer a native mobile application interface that covers both iOS, so Apple devices, Android devices, and Windows devices. That's both on smartphone and on tablets. We offer those as a fully branded application, so you can see examples from Winchester and Bournemouth and Torvine and numerous others on screen as I spin through them. There is an unbranded version down here, this little white lozenge, which I'll tap onto, which is just a generic version of the MyCounsel Services app. And I'm going to go into that, and you'll see that I've effectively got on my native mobile application access to all of the feature and function that exists on the browser-based My Account portal. I'm logged in under my own profile in this example, so I've got access to all of those reported forms, anything else that we might provide or offer. If I scroll down, then you'll notice I've got an option called Mobile Worker down here. So if I tap on Mobile Worker, you will have noticed, or you will notice as you look at the screen, that a couple of things have been updated while we've been getting on with our demo and our broadcast this morning. Those automated rules have kicked in, and two new assignments have been sent to me. There's a flight tip that's been added, and also a book and pay item. So I go into the flight tip example, you'll see that I've got all of those details added for me around that particular flight tip that Gary raised this morning, including the ability to go and see the image and see what it exactly is I'm dealing with, and so on and so forth. I can update that and manage that in any way that I want. So I've got a full mobile working capability. If I get there and I realise that there's presence of clinical sharps and I'm not equipped with the right tools to deal with that, I could create a separate task and assign that off to another colleague, and so on and so forth. So you've got a full digitally enabled ability to complete that workflow process without the need to be tethered to an office and without the need to have printed task sheets and so on. That applies to ad hoc requests like booking and paying for bulky item uplift, or ad hoc inbound requests like flight tipping, and we also offer interfaces that are dedicated to waste management process, so the download effectively of full waste collection itineraries that would be available to crew members in the cab of a vehicle or whatever it might be as part of your waste collections process, so we can digitize that end-to-end process. So we're just coming up to 11 o'clock, and I did promise that I would have you ready to go and able to get on with the rest of your Wednesday within 60 minutes. So I'll endeavour to stick to my end of the deal. And I'm just going to jump back to some slides. I'm going to skip through some of these pretty quickly because there's some additional features that I've touched on and mentioned this morning, but not necessarily shown you in detail. There's the ability to do what we call missed collection automation. So, for example, to only allow a customer to raise a missed bin collection once their round has been collected on any given day. Also, only if you're signed up to that service, so they can't raise a missed bin collection for a green garden waste if they haven't got an active contract with you. We can overlay that with things like communications. So that could be SMS, email, or push notifications to the device, or an automated call to remind customers, to put their bin out the night before the following morning it's going to be collected. So there's lots of value-added communication capability that we can wrap around it. We offer an ability to look up your bin collection day. So that can be on a browser or on an app. That can be part of a My Account portal or just an individual postcode lookup. And that would include all of your paid for and included mandated refuse collection services. We've got a facility within the platform to manage interim addresses. So as some of you will be aware, there's a 6-week current cycle on address-based updates and LLPG updates. We adhere to that 6-week update religiously. We update ours every 6 weeks, and we offer the ability for you to create interim addresses that then can be added back in. But more importantly, from the interim address point of view, within that 6-week cycle, it allows you to create an interim address and actually to have collections against that address, even though it's not part of LLPG, and a quick route to getting it added into LLPG and verified. We offer integration out of the box pretty much. I talked about payment integration. We offer those as repeatable components, and we've offered a whole range of existing integrations that we've done before, so we're going to know the terrain, as it were. Very, very briefly, just in the last couple of minutes, I just want to touch on a couple of reporting features which I haven't really mentioned. So we offer a full range of analytics on collection activity, the ability to provide mobile interfaces for council officers, for mobile workers to use whilst they're out in a vehicle as part of a round collection or working independently as a mobile worker. That could be the download of a full collection schedule for their given day to the device which is in the cab, so they can tick off with a single swipe to notify collection. We offer a full mobile worker interface, which I just showed you very briefly on my device. There's a mobile management capability so that you can actually go and assign and manage remotely. So if you're a team leader and you've got your own workflow to manage, you're using mobile worker to do that, but you've also got the responsibility of assigning and managing activities to members of your team. You can do that while you're out and about with a full offline capability. There's an express mobile worker option. And then just finally to finish up, you'll see a little animated GIF on screen at the minute. One of the things that our R&D team are working on at the minute is to offer a fully scaled navigation route optimization application as part of the MyCounsel Services waste module. So that will be with us in February of 2018, according to current product development plans. So we're working on that currently, which will give you a full route optimization and route planning capability. We offer a lone worker safety capability and a workforce tracking capability. So you've got a whole bunch of tools at your disposal beyond that which I've been able to show you in a relatively time-constrained session for this webinar this morning. All that leads me to say is to thank you very much for joining us this morning. My name is Bernie Simmons. I've been your presenter today. I hope you found it useful and thought-provoking. If you would like to engage with us in a more detailed conversation, we'd be delighted to do that. We certainly pride ourselves on being affordable, flexible, scalable, and offering the support you provide to ensure a successful rollout. Thanks, everybody. Wishing you a productive rest of your Wednesday. Bye-bye now.